Oh, hey, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Storytellers Wild Creatives. I am here with my dear friend, Jennifer Gregson. Hey, Jen.
Hello.
How are you
How are
doing?
you?
Oh, look,
I'm
we
good.
said, we said it at the same time. How are you?
I know. We're so polite.
I know we're so nice to each other. So I'm so excited to have Jen here today because we just realized, talking before we hit the record button, is that Jen was on Storytellers Wild Creatives almost exactly a year ago today. And that seems really rad and significant as to why we are joining forces again and sharing with you. So I'm like, oh, that's a magical moment that we didn't even realize we were creating in the
Didn't
moment
even do it on purpose.
didn't
Nope.
do it on purpose. So, if you haven't had an experience with Jennifer Gregson before, she's a published YA author. She is my dear friend. She supports me on Team Sage in things that I do at Tell Your Stories, LLC, which is my official business name. And we also have had some fun experiences together, leading some workshops about the inner critic and inner fear, and that's the inspiration of why we're coming to you today. Um, Jen, is there anything that you want to share about who you are and what you do in the world that I missed?
Nope. I'm a indie YA author. I have 3 books currently out, and I'm right now writing the first of a urban fantasy series that is set in New York, which is where I live. So that's fun, getting to explore the city through my words. Yeah, otherwise, I'm just I'm just vibing. I'm glad I'm here.
I'm so glad you're here too. So we reconnected for this episode because we want to talk about, we really enjoy talking about inner critic and inner fear stuff
We
because
really do.
like
Do. Even on my YouTube channel, that's like one of my main things that I talk about.
it's like fear, pull up a chair. But we're both creative humans who have had big experiences with both the inner critic and fear, which I mean any human has, but we've have an understanding now that we didn't have before. And so I don't want to
Mhm.
for you, Jen, but I want to hear your answer. But for me, it's like once you kind of find a magical elixir, you want to share it. You don't want to keep it to yourself, like, oh, wait, there's another side to this. It doesn't have to be so dark and gloomy. I don't want to keep it to myself. The first thing I want to do is go, oh my God, creative friends. There's another way, and so why do you think you've become so passionate about that, speaking out about this stuff?
Yeah, well, because you are correct. I think fear is a universal topic for every human on earth, but I think especially for creative people. I don't care what your medium is. I don't care if you're a singer, an actor, a writer, a dancer, a musician, like in general, a painter. I don't care. I think that the fear is just part of the cycle. And yeah, I think once you understand, and this is what we're going to talk about today, working with it and understanding it, I want to show other people. That's exactly, yeah, you're right. I want other creative people to realize that they don't have to stay stuck in that fear. So, because you can get stuck.
Yeah. So speaking of feeling stuck, is
Mm,
there is there a moment in time that comes to you where you're like,
yeah,
oh girl, I got a story?
yeah. I was working on my second book,
Mhm.
and it was the time I had to throw out 70,000 words. And on one hand, we have talked about this before. So I think one of the podcast episodes we discussed this, but I had to throw out a whole first draft, and it was for good reason.
Yeah.
But I got completely stuck I will not be able to do this again. I will not be able to write another first draft. I'm done. And it was almost a year. I think it was 9 months of thinking about writing, but not actually putting fingers. And that's, I think, why I joined your book in 90, to be honest with you,
Wow.
because I wanted to get unstuck so badly. I just couldn't do it on my own. So I'm pretty sure that's how I found you in the first place. And
Oh,
then I wrote that next draft, and that book is out, and I wrote a whole nother book after that. And so, and because of the things that we're discussing here, I work through
Hmm.
that fear, that inner judgment, the inner critic, all the words. Um,
Yes.
because I would sit down and want to write so badly, and the voices just wouldn't let me do it.
Ugh. Like I'm having a moment where I'm like, how wild life is that that experience with your inner critic, the inner fear, all the inners, right, brought you to me, and
Yeah,
we began doing this work together.
right.
I'm just like, what? This is so rad. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Um, so when what was the piece that shifted you? And I'm curious,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is a twofer. I know I'm throwing like one, two at you, one,
All right.
two.
I got it. I got it.
But I'm thinking about in that place of stuckness when you were really in it,
Mm-hmm.
did you know in that time, like, this is my inner critic, this is my inner judgment, or were you so deep in it, you were just like, this sucks?
Yeah, it just sucked.
It just
It
sucks.
totally sucked. It
Yeah.
just sucked all around. I felt very depressed. It was just this weight, like the weighted blanket that's supposed to be nice for you, but it was like you couldn't remove it.
Yeah.
That's the feeling. And it wasn't until I got through it and got past it and figured out what wasn't working and what was working
Yeah.
that I could look back and go, oh, that was the inner that was imposter syndrome, which for me is a fear.
Yeah.
That was imposter syndrome. I didn't think I could do this again. That was inner fear of success because I just didn't think I'd ever be able to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was I had to be removed from the situation for sure, which is one of the things I think is hard for people to realize when they're in it,
Yes.
which is another reason I like talking about this because I think the more we talk about it and the more people hear it, they can go, oh, that's what I'm dealing with. Oh my, I didn't even realize. And
Right.
then they're ready to get the help because when you're stuck, you can't always see that
Yeah.
you even need the help. Yeah.
That's so true. Like, I think I take for granted that I'm a part of an active community where I'm meeting, we have our writing sessions together every week and writing sessions with the Empowered Project women. And like, we have all of this built-in support and accountability in our lives that I think it's a little bit easier when you're surrounded with people like who are also in it and working
Mm-hmm.
whatever they're doing, that you can recognize like, oh, wait a minute, I think something's not working. And then you can bounce ideas off. But I think when you're on your own doing it, it's much harder to recognize like, hey, this is what's happening.
So true. And I think once you get through it and you come out the other side and you have some tools, I think it's also easier to catch.
Totally. Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, you can still get
no.
stuck, but I think it's a lot easier to go, whoa, I haven't written in 2 weeks. What's going on?
Yes.
Because we catch it now.
Yes.
But I didn't back then. I just avoided it.
No, it's so true. It's
I
like,
avoided the thinking, I was like, oh, it's fine. I'll get back to it when I get back to it.
right.
I'm fine.
It's true.
It
And
was far, far from fine.
you're like, I was not
Far
on
from fine.
fine island.
Was not fine. Right.
But what happens is like 1 week turns into two, turns into three, turns into a month, 2 months, and then you're like on this landslide going down, like, how do I stop this? And you usually just don't stop it. You end up
It's
at the
so true.
bottom in the hole in the pit, and you're like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean totally. Like I think once you know, then it's really hard unless you're just like giving your power away to the mindset stuff. Like once you
Mm-hmm.
know, it's like then you're like, oh, there's that trigger where you recognize it. So I totally hear that part.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's funny because you and I went through big things in our writing around the same time. You went through it before me. You definitely went through that experience before I did, but I wasn't that far behind you where
No, you weren't.
my little
You
train
weren't.
into the station, like, I'm fine. I've got over 50,000 words. I'm well on my way. Girl, and then I pull into the train station and go, wait, hold on. Like, what's actually happening? And then I let go of 30,000 words. And I remember having you had gone through that experience as like a, hey, I remember you telling me, like, I understand, like, that's just what I went through, kind of, you know? So, and I think it's interesting that I asked you that question. Like, did you recognize that it was inner critic stuff? Because when I look back, if I asked myself that question, I didn't recognize it was inner critic stuff. But I think when I reflect back, like, what happened? Like,
What was going on?
how did that happen? I remember feeling a lot of pressure to this is a pressure that I have only felt writing my YA fiction series. And I think it's because it's a series. And I think when somebody enjoys a book in your series and they start getting connected to characters, you can, if you're not careful, take on other people's expectations, like ideas. And so then I remember book two was clunky, like in the getting into my flow, because I was just like, well, what if I get it wrong? And I'm using air quotes for those of you listening. Like, what if I get it wrong? What if I don't wrap up the story in the way that people need it, right? So then what's happening is I'm shifting from the vision of what I created into other people's expectations. And so it's that inner critic piece about not being good enough, like not trusting myself and just doing what I know I get to do and instead going, well, somebody else knows better than me, right? Which is probably a thread to imposter syndrome too. I mean, we could really weave
Yes.
all of these suckers together, right? But long story long, I think it came down to the more pressure that I felt, the louder the voices got. Like, you don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You're in over your head. Um, and I didn't really experience it that deeply until my third book. And then I was like, can I do this? Like, there was even a point I questioned, do I need to even write this book?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've ever thought that before in the middle of a project. Like, I should just stop. Like, it's weird to think about that I got that deep in it, allowing the voices to get so loud that they almost convinced me to just let the book go. I would have been so sad if I would
I
have.
know because the third book is so good. Spoiler alert, go find her series. It's good. And the third book is great. And I got to read it early and it was great. And no, it's funny because I have said this before that you start having those voices, it is almost always some sort of outward thinking. What will they think?
Yes.
It's it if you start thinking, what do I think?
Yeah.
It's slightly different. We can still get tripped up sometimes because we don't know which decision to make,
Yeah.
right? Or something happens. But it's really different if you just think, what can I do to make this the best book? Or what can I do to
Yes.
love this character? But if you start thinking, what will they think? That's when those voices get loud.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
It's so true. Because that is what totally detoured my flow was all of this pressure of they, like,
Mm-hmm.
they, who are they? I don't like them.
The voiceless, the faceless voices, right?
The faceless voices. So, so we were talking about this kind of fun spin of all these different inner critic voices that we have, right? And bringing them together, naming them, and we called it our Council of Critics. So, I mean, I'm not going to share all of them, okay? Because we'd be here a minute if I shared
We'd
my
be here
whole.
all day. Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you want to share first? Do you want to roll?
Yeah. So I side note, I
Okay.
use tarot for almost all of my writing. And so when I first started working on this, sort of trying to figure out why I was stuck, I
Mhm.
went to the tarot cards and I pulled the Hierophant card. And I was like old school, like the original Rider Waite Smith deck.
Mhm.
And that's who I went with, that sort of gatekeeper, because that's exactly what the inner critic felt like. It
Yeah.
felt like someone that was task managing you and
Yeah.
needing you to be correct. But then later, as I learned to work with him, I started working with this version.
Oh.
And his name is the dude because he and I are pals now. So we're just, and it's just funny because this is how he works. He listens to me and
Yeah.
then he shoots out ideas now.
Yeah.
Before it was sort of judgy. So this is my inner critic. This is the dude.
Can you
And
describe
then,
for anybody who's listening
oh
what?
yeah, if you're listening. So this is from the Way of the Panda tarot deck by Kimberly Toussaint. And it's all pandas. So this cool looking panda with a tie
Yeah.
and dark glasses, like the black rimmed glasses.
Yeah.
And sort of light is going into one ear, and then out the other ear is a rainbow. And he's surrounded by bamboo, really bright colored bamboo. And he's
Yeah.
just chilling. So that is that card. And then when I was thinking about all the other voices, like my inner fear, this is the card that came up. So this is the devil card from the same deck. And it's a panda that's like trapped in a chain
Oh.
and he's screaming, he's crying, he's not happy. And if you've ever seen the TV show Lucifer, he's the devil in LA and he goes by the name Lucifer, and people don't seem to care that that's his name. Like, it's really strange, but they call him Lucy. So that's who this one is. This one is Lucy. And I think it's really interesting because I feel like this card is this panda especially is very misunderstood because she's trapped. And that's sort of how we feel when we're afraid.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So those are my sort of two.
Yeah.
I mean, this one could branch off into like a ton, but these are kind of my two big ones that
Wow.
yeah.
And I think what's really potent is when you're looking at your council of critics and you can really feel into the different energy that each one has and like kind of their intention and how they show up and possibly why they show up, right? That's the goal.
Right.
Is there anything else you wanted to add about that?
No, it's just sort of like this one has definitely changed throughout the years.
Yeah.
Because I've worked with him so long. I'm kind of hoping this one will do the same and it won't be as scary, but you just never know.
Yeah.
Never know. Because but I mean, because fears always feel scary.
Yeah.
So, and you always feel like you don't have a choice. That's kind of what it feels like. She's in this trap. You don't have a choice to be in that trap.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it feels.
Yeah. Wow.
So who is on your council? I don't know if we've discussed this.
Well, I mean, I was thinking about because there's so many council members. I've been blessed with so many council members.
Hashtag blessed.
Hashtag blessed. I was thinking about like who are the ones that really tend to show up specifically when I'm writing. And I named one Chaos Kathy. She loves to stir the pot. Chaos Kathy, if I'm in any place of like, like I'm deciding like, oh, am I like, where am I at exactly? What's my next move? Like, I'm just thinking. And here comes Chaos Kathy on a mission. She's like, oh, are you confused? Are you confused because you don't know what you're doing? Because you don't know what's going on? Let me support you in this confusion. Like, I just envision Chaos Kathy just like coming in. She's,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So Chaos Kathy.
Why am I picturing the sitcom neighbor from the 1980s that comes in to cause trouble in the episode?
With like her little handbag. And she's like,
right.
She's got the latest gossip.
Right.
So yeah, so Chaos Kathy, I feel like sits on the sidelines, and anytime I'm in a pause of just reflection or thinking, she wants to jump in and be like, how can I confuse this poor human? And stir up some trouble. And then the other one who's super prominent, I call Nitpicking Nelly. And Nitpicking Nelly is like, she reminds me that I can't get it right. So if I'm in here like,
gotta love that voice.
oh, Nelly, Like, just she's just going through everything that I'm writing. So if I'm like in first draft or, messy second draft, she's like, oh God, this is terrible. Like this is your second pass. Oh my God. She's just like such a jerk. So much to say. And she's just nitpicking all the little things. She loves to just point out all the little things like, oh my gosh, have you used really like 20 times in this chapter? Like, don't you know any other words? Just like
Oh, it's so real.
just going through, just like, here she comes, nitpicking
Oh.
Nelly. So those are the two that really show up when I'm just, trying to be a peaceful writer,
Right. Hmm.
when I'm just minding my own business.
Minding
Here
my
these
own
two biddies
business.
come.
Oh, the nitpicking one is so real.
Oh yeah.
So real. Like
Yeah.
that's the name you're gonna go with? That's
Yeah.
what you chose? Really?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to type that a lot. Mine likes to remind me.
Exactly. So it's just that little pick, 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 everything that I do. Um, and so I think
And she causes you to second guess everything.
everything, right? Because
Everything.
well, wait a minute. Do I not know any better words? Like I start like questioning my own sanity as I'm writing. And then here comes like Chaos Kathy behind her, like, there's confusion. I smell confusion. I'm here for the party. I brought a casserole. We could do a whole skit just with our
We could. We really could. Because my nitpicker goes off a lot when I write, like I start all my paragraphs with I. It's like, girl, change it up. No one's gonna read this. Sometimes that's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just like, it's a lie that you're trying to like brush
I mean,
off.
that's the thing. They're not wrong.
Yeah.
Do you need to use really 10 times in this chapter? No.
Oh,
But
I'm getting there.
but I'm getting there.
I'm
That's
not
the
yet.
whole thing. That is the whole thing. Well, and I think that's the whole thing is they are helpful.
Yes. Yes. And
But
and I mean that's a beautiful shift into so I love that we can again recognize the different energies of the different voices that we hear. And
mhm.
and I think then we start giving them this,
Oh,
we start personifying them and we've got our names and
I
it
need to make mine a little bit more fun. Mine is like a panda trapped in a trap.
look, I'm like, if you're going to be a busybody in my brain, I'm going to create whatever I'm going to create from you. Like, you're
I love it.
Ellie and Chaos Kathy. That's who you be. It's so it's like we name them, which I think is such a powerful step in really
So
beginning
powerful.
to understand them. Because now we're going, okay, I hear you. This is what you're telling me. Why are you telling me this?
Hmm.
Like you said, they're there for some kind of reason. So it's like, all right, Chaos Kathy, she's really concerned I'm confused. So like she's really concerned. So then I'm like, okay, so what is her motivation underneath that? And I start really thinking and leaning into, well, what happens if I show up confused? Well, I could be judged, right? If I am not writing with clarity, and I publish a book and it's confusing, I'm probably going to get bad reviews or I'm going to get people who judge me in some way or you know what I mean? Like there's going to be an impact from writing a book
Hmm.
that's confusing. So Chaos Kathy, bless her soul, is doesn't know how to just be gentle and she's coming in her own way. And so it's really understanding what her motivation is. Yes, it's
Hmm.
annoying. Yes, I'd prefer her not to come bustling in with her little handbag ready to stir the pot, right? But that's who she is. And so it's almost
Hmm.
like I'm accepting her for who she is, just like I'd love for her to accept me for who I am. Um, did you hear that, Kathy? And so then really like now it's that motivation piece. So what are you feeling into there
Hmm.
as we shift into why are you here?
Right. That's exactly what I ask. If I start feeling those feelings and I can catch it, it'll be like, yo. Well, first I have to identify which one it is.
Right.
Is it inner critic or is it some flavor of inner fear?
Yeah.
Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of judgment, or the imposter syndrome. Those are kind of the four. Which one is it? So I start there and then I go, okay, why? Why are you coming up? And sometimes I can just sit with the feelings and feel it. Where is it in my body? All of that. And sometimes I have to write it out.
Mhm.
Like sometimes it's bad and you got to let it talk. And usually, yeah, they're just, usually I find that they're 3 or 4 steps ahead of you, if not more.
Yeah, that's a good
Which
point.
on one hand, they're thinking a year ahead. And you're like, yo, that's cool. But
Right here.
stay right here. Like I'm in the first draft. I'm in second draft. I don't need to think about the cover. I don't need to think about what keywords I'm choosing, like all the things that they could be,
Yeah.
freaking out about. But I think getting really, really clear on why they're there is huge
Yeah.
because they do want to help and they're real bad at it. They're real bad at it. Um, they're real bad at it. Now, with my inner critic, because that one came up the most when I was writing, we have now an understanding. So if I say, hey, I'm sitting down to write today, I don't need you in my ear. What I want you to do is every time I come up for something that I have trouble with, your job is to come up with something cooler than what I would come up with.
I love this.
So like if it's title, if it's like names, I'm real bad at names.
Mhm.
If I can say, listen, I'm writing a whole new story, I need names. That's your job.
Mhm.
Then that part of my brain has something to do.
Right.
And
Right.
it won't be so obnoxious about stuff. It'll actually be helpful.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't found that as much with the interfere yet.
Mhm.
I haven't been able to give it jobs yet,
Right.
but I have been able to like slow the roll, as it were. Like, hey, thank you. I will need you in 3 months when
Yeah.
I get to this part, or I will need you, and usually I can quiet it, but I have not found that it works quite the same with interfere as it does with the inner critic.
Mhm.
Because I think the inner critic is like, can I help? What can I do?
Yeah.
I think that's your nitpicker, right? Your
Right.
nitpicker is like, what can I do?
Yeah. I'm here. I'm here.
Let me come up with a different word.
Well, and I think it's a really good point you're making that there's a different energy and a different motivation between the critic and the fear. And I think there's a key piece is understanding that they are two separate things. Like there's a
Yep,
lot of
that's
similarity,
very true.
but they are
A
different.
lot of similarities.
Yes, they are different. And yeah, I mean, I think the key here is that we are expressing how we're mending the relationship with them and not trying to avoid them. Because do you think Kathy is going to be quiet if I just avoid her? She's going to get
No,
louder. She's going to get louder. So the whole like being grumpy with them, getting mad at them, avoiding, or just absolutely stopping your creativity, that's not going to work. Guess who is chomping in your ear when you're not writing or painting or baking or gardening, whatever your thing is, it's going to be your critic council. They are
well,
going
and
to,
I feel like it will get bigger.
oh yeah, because
Like right
now,
now, you have those two characters, and all of a sudden they're going to bring their friends, and then
oh
those
yeah,
friends are going to bring friends, and
yeah,
then it's going to be a critic party
it's
that you did not ask for.
girl, it's a full-blown barbecue and everybody's bringing like something to eat. They are like,
Everybody's bringing a potluck and a judgment.
yeah. It's,
It's like a family reunion. No, I'm kidding.
it's true. But so I think so here's the steps so far. I'm just going to summarize what we've done so far.
Yep.
So far, we've recognized that there's something behind the stuckness, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
something behind the avoidance. And first job is to get curious with it. Like, what is it? And like you, and I think it takes a pause. And actually, like I love how you've said I ask it questions or like why are you here? What is this? Like getting curious and then really like giving it some personification by naming it. and
Mhm.
then and then asking it again. So, okay, you're nitpicking Nelly. Why are you nitpicking me? Like, what could, like, really starting to break it down and understanding it, because then I feel like there's some healing that gets to happen when you understand it.
Mhm.
And then I think the next step is going into this, creating a visual like you have with your tarot.
Right. Yeah. So I think being able to, like, you pictured such a clear person in your mind.
Mhm.
Some people, I think that's all they need, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know probably what she looks like, what her hairstyle is, what that pocketbook looks like you have it. I needed that visual representation that I could actually look at. But you
Yeah.
don't have to use tarot. You could just pull up a magazine and look for pictures. You could go onto Pinterest or just the internet and type in random things and find something. And if you can just picture it really good in your mind, that also works. But I think that helps sort of take it out of ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Because it does come from an outward place. I think having it outward takes away the shame,
Hmm.
because when we start feeling that judgment, it makes us as people feel bad.
Yeah.
When I think you can put it on the a visual, or you can create that character,
Hmm.
you could say that person's making me feel bad. I'm not a bad person.
Hmm.
It's that entity, that thing that
Hmm.
I just need to learn to work with. I am not a bad person, and it does help. It's a really interesting mindset shift, because before I was just like, well, I'm not writing, I'm terrible. I'm a terrible person.
Yeah.
And once I figured out that I could personify the inner critic, or I could personify that fear, it's like, okay, I'm not terrible.
Yeah.
I am dealing with X, Y, and Z.
Right. Right. Yeah, for sure. I feel like it's also like less threatening when you can see it. Because what,
So true.
right? Like, what freaks people out? The unknown, the
Mm-hmm.
uncertainty, not knowing the information. So now you can name your critic or fear, you can understand their motivation, and you can give them a visual. And you can make them really ridiculous if you want them to, because really ridiculous things like Kathy and coming in with her little handbag, like, I don't feel threatened by her.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
I know she's going to annoy me, but I'm like, she's not going to make me stop writing, right? She
Right.
and so I think it's like, this is the work
Mm-hmm.
that we
Mm-hmm.
get to do, that is our responsibility to navigate. I never say overcome inner critic or
Mm-hmm.
overcome fear. As long as you're a human being, you're going to experience it. But as Jen and I are sharing, like, there are ways to build relationship. There are ways that they don't have to stop you. And it doesn't have to be as hard as it may feel now, right? I'm not saying it's always going to be easy, because it's not.
No.
That's
Well, I think of it like any relationship. So I think of my inner critic now as a friend.
Mhm.
But how many times does your friend piss you off in
Right.
real life? I mean, we all have that friend that we love, would fight wars for, but they still get under your skin because we're human. So if you can create that character
Mhm.
and build that relationship, it's like a friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like the better communication you have with people, usually the better, the healthier the relationship is. So if you're,
That is so true. Yes.
so it's like thinking about, if you're just ignoring them, well, there's no connection, there's no communication. So imagine that being your spouse or a family member or a friend, like, that you're just not communicating with, you're avoiding. Like, how well is that going to end up?
No.
Like, and
No.
so again, this is the power of, like, okay, I'm gonna sit with you and have some tea or have some coffee, and we're gonna try to figure this thing out. Like, how do we coexist together, instead of like, I got to get rid of you, because that doesn't work. I'm just gonna say it right
Mm-mm.
now. That doesn't work.
It
And
doesn't work,
no, not at
because,
all.
like we said, it's part of the creative cycle.
Yeah. And it's
There's no getting rid of it.
no, and it's part of
You
you,
learn to, it's, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
part of you. So even if you stop creating, not gonna avoid them
Mm-mm.
at all. So over the past 2 years, Jen and I have taught two different workshops around this. Where first year we did creating with your inner critic and creating with your inner fear, so that we could really support people in identifying like what's the inner critic, what's inner fear, and like how do I coexist with them? How do I loosen the grip that they have on me, right? Because you want to be able to take your power back from wherever you are. If you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling like me, where I was like in the landslide and I fell in the hole and I'm like, how did I get here? What do I do
How did
now?
I get here?
You know?
Right.
And
We teach how to work with them,
yes,
not against them, because when you
no,
try to avoid them or work against them or push them away,
yeah,
that, like we've said, it doesn't work and they get louder.
yeah.
But
So
if you can coexist,
yeah, if you can coexist and have some kind of relationship where you meet each other in the middle, then you can finish your things. And that's the goal. It's like, I think, part of my passion behind this work is I just get so sad seeing so many people give up because the critic is too loud or the fear feels so massive that it just paralyzes them. And it breaks my heart because I know there's another way. And so, yeah, and I think again, it's like, it's our responsibility to work, to do the work, to understand it, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting way of putting it, because I always like to say that fear stops when you take action,
Mhm.
which what you said is exactly
Yeah.
what I'm saying, but in a totally beautiful way. It's if you can work with them and really do that work, that's taking an action step. That's
Yeah.
chipping away at the stuckness. That's chipping away at writer's block. That's chipping away at all of that,
Mhm.
because you are taking an action. You are taking responsibility. Yeah.
And look, it's a part of, we're all like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
it's,
because it's so important. Like I'm so passionate, because I just want more creative people who
yes.
are feeling this to say, holy moly, there's a different way. There is a different way.
Look, and I'm, I'm gonna,
Not an easy way all the
no,
time,
nobody's saying it's easy.
but it is definitely a better, different way.
Yes, and especially in these weird times of our world, like creativity is the last thing we need to give up on. It's the last
Exactly.
thing. It is so our nourishment and our medicine and that healing balm that our sanity needs. So it's like we basically what we've done is we've resurrected these beautiful workshops. Each workshop is 3 hours long. We did some pre-recorded sessions. We've got printables and beautiful things to support the work that we do in the workshop together. And we resurrected it because we're like, yo, the world needs this right now more than ever. More than ever. There is just this heaviness that's just floating in the air, understandably. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Understandably. But we'd love to support you through this vessel of creating with your inner critic and creating with your inner fear. And so we've created a bundle where it's a self-guided experience. And here's the thing that I want to say about self-guided, because I used to do this and I want to debunk this story, is that I don't watch recordings. I don't watch recordings.
Mm,
I need to come live. And here's what I want to say. There's something underneath the piece about not wanting to watch recordings. And I got real with myself. Look, I'm not just dishing up the inquiries for you, dear listener. I am doing the work over here too. And I asked myself, like, does saying out loud, oh, I don't watch recordings, I need to be there live, is that like holding myself high, or is that I'm getting in my own way of having this really rad experience
mm.
that can serve me? And yes, I love live experiences. I love being in the energy of it. And I'm a grown ass woman who can also watch recordings and do the work. You know what I mean? Like that is also true.
It's true. And as much as I love doing this live, because we taught this twice, two different,
Yes.
themes, I loved that. But also, this work is so personal. This work could have you in tears. This work could take time. And sometimes doing it in a 3 hour live, you feel like you have to do it right there. And it adds that pressure that if you watch the recordings, you could watch an hour a day and take 2 weeks
Mhm.
and really do the work. And you're going to come away with something that you might not have if you tried to do it in 1 3 hour session.
And look, yes, and this is what I know too. Oh, so go ahead. Sorry, I'm
No,
like,
I was just
this
saying,
is
I
what
mean,
I
yes,
know.
live is cool. I'm not saying I'll never do another live. I love going to things live, but there is sometimes that you get to the end of it and you're like, am I done? Like, are we done? I'm done. But you're not.
You're not done. You're never
You're not. You
no.
still have to do the work. So that's kind of
Yeah,
like the pros and cons, right?
yeah,
You can take your time and really dive into each section because we bounce back and forth and do different exercises and different things, and you could really take your time with that
yeah.
and let the feelings come up and deal with it.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you're speaking into that because I think when I was reflecting on like, why do I always say, oh, I'm not going to watch the recordings or I don't watch recordings? Because I have a time story. I have a time story that I don't have enough
Mm-hmm.
time. But miraculously, I would have had time to go to the 3 hour live. But then I don't have time to watch the 3 hours at my
three
own
hour recording.
around my own, you know what I'm saying? So I really
Yeah.
start going, the root of it is, sometimes I don't put value on what I want to create. And so it feels like maybe it might be a little bit more challenging. And here's the thing, just because you're doing these workshops on your own, self-guided, like Jen and I are still here. Jen and I are still
Yeah.
here to reach out to connect with, to share with. Like we genuinely love being a part of the journey with you. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like, oh, I'm doing this thing alone. But the two pieces that come up for me is this is part of your healing journey as a human being. And so
Mm-hmm.
that takes time. Like that takes work. That takes you scheduling it in your calendar of like, I'm going to gift myself an hour this week to do this work because it's healing. It's healing to you. Um, and there's this piece about the inner critic doesn't go away and the inner fear doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows that a new project might resurrect this new inner critic? Busybody Barbara might show up. Like, we don't know.
We don't know. Well, and the thing is, if you take the time and you schedule it and you give yourself that little bit of time, you
Yeah.
are also showing yourself that you want to get back to your creative project, that
Yes.
you want to get back to the thing that you were stuck on. So doing this sort of gives you that real time sort of proof that you're worthy of it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Because
It's
you're not writing anyway, or you're not painting, or you're not doing your thing, then you're there. That time that you were spending, you're
yeah.
not anymore. But if you start chipping away and giving yourself that time back,
Yeah.
I think that also is part of the work that really helps. That sort of fear goes away when you take action. Or
Yep.
fear gets quiet. Fear
Yeah.
gets quiet when you take action. Yeah.
And it's just powerful to claim time for yourself. It's powerful to not hide behind excuses because you're afraid. It's really cool to be responsible. It's really cool. Like, I want to make responsibility the coolest thing ever. Like, I'm just like,
And if you're scared, because that stuck feeling feels real scary, get curious and just say, what would it feel like to give myself 1 hour this week to work on this workshop? What would it feel like to give myself 2 hours? What would it feel like to just go through the first video?
yeah,
What would it feel like? And get curious and just see, does it help? Do I feel better?
yeah. I mean, you're worthy, you're valuable, and
Right.
I'm somebody who like I do create urgency for myself because I do believe life is now, time is now. Like I'm don't want to be somebody who keeps putting things off until things are less hectic or I'm not as busy and I'm using air quotes because if you're alive, things are happening. Life is life and
Mm-hmm.
and again I go back to the being responsible for like you get to create this experience for yourself and it's going to be beautiful and valuable and I love that in this bundle, you get all the goodies and you get lifetime access to this to do it as much as you want, because I'm sure that you don't feel like the same person you were 2 months ago, 6 months ago. So if you're,
Mm-mm.
so is your fear and your critic. And so I think it's really cool to revisit this type of work to be connected in like, what's
Mm-hmm.
coming up for me now?
Well, because each project, I feel like,
Yeah.
brings up some new facet of the inner critic or some new facet of fear that I didn't even know was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the links below in the description, there's going to be a link to the bundle. And I think that if you're someone who's listening and you're like, oh my gosh, the things that these two cuckoo banana ladies have shared is relatable. I'm like, you're welcome. I feel like it's relate if you feel like, hey, this is relatable, like I feel that fear right now, or oh my God,
Mhm.
I think I have a chaos Kathy.
Right.
Like this is it. This is the thing you've been waiting for. Here it is. It's the bundle. It's the creating with your inner critic and
Here.
fear bundle that we're inviting you to check out. And if you have any questions, you can reach out. All the information you need is either going to be on that page, the landing page that gives you all the deets. Or you can DM. If you found this podcast, you could find us. I promise.
Mhm.
There's a
Very true.
connect. So yeah, like I'm inviting you to make an investment in yourself, in your creativity, in your overall well-being, and to share with us because we really do want to be a part of that journey. Like, can you not tell how passionate we are about critics and fear? Like, it's kind of redonkulous. We're like, wait, hold on, I want the talking stick. I got things to say.
I mean, we didn't want to make this podcast insanely long, but I literally could talk about this for hours.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I
it's
mean, and we did.
so what?
Considering we did 2 3 hour workshops, we talked about it for 6 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally could just keep talking about
Yeah. And there's a
it.
beautiful,
We won't, I
we
promise you.
won't, we're wrapping it up, okay?
We're wrapping it up.
But so I do want to mention that the juiciness that Jen brings into the workshops is the intuitive tools. And then I'm bringing in like the intentional creativity tools. And so we have this really beautiful weave. And there's such a variety. Like there's absolutely no reason that you can't make the teachings work for you, which is so cool. It is so flexible. And so there's some writing and there's some visualization and there's some, like collage creativity. It's just a beautiful experience that we both stand by and are really proud of. And so we're excited for you to take a peek at it and see what you think.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Jen, is there anything else you want to say? I know we've said so many things.
We said so many things. No, I just think if you're stuck and you don't want to be stuck anymore, that you should just do yourself the favor of clicking the link and at least reading through stuff.
Totally.
Um, because we're just as crazy on these workshops as we are right now on these podcasts. I mean, you're getting us exactly how you would get us. And if you think we're
Yeah.
cool and you think we can help you as crazy as we are,
Yeah.
then come on over and be crazy
Yeah.
with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're very we're down with real talk. We're down with showing up
So
authentically,
true.
transparently, and being open. We're both great about, sharing vulnerably, and it's a
Yep.
see is what you get kind of deal. And those are my favorite deals. So
Yeah.
yeah, so thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for listening as we share. And I love Jen's first invitation. It's just like, just click on the link and check it out and see what you think. And we've got some testimonials of people who participated in the live experience who shared what they created and how the workshops impacted them. And that's it. We'd love to hear from you. Who's in your council? Let us know.
Oh, I would love to know that. Yes.
Yeah. So do the workshop, find out, come back.
Come back and tell us.
All right, my friends,
All
take care
right.
of yourselves. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.